come over to the West Coast quite often, so you can call me. I'm going to hand out cards at the end, and that way maybe we can set up some appointments if you'd like to go over some fabrics in the future and any of the other product. But for today, we're just going to cover some hardware. This is Lisa. She's our head of our drapery department, so finished product and our hardware here. So she's going to do the brunt of the presentation since she is exceedingly more knowledgeable than I am in this subject. So I'll let her take over.
Thank you, Adriano. Thank you all for being here. And hopefully when you walk away from today, you'll feel either refreshed of hardware, or you will at least walk away with some curious questions about it, because there's a lot of information I'm going to put into this presentation. How many of you know what I'm holding in my hand? Very good, you even know the name of it. Very important tool when we're talking about hardware. It's amazing how many sales reps, when I'm training them, they start doing this, you know, trying to get the finial off, and I'm like, do you see that little set screw? That's what this is for. And certainly with all the sets that we ship out, we ship this little piece and it somehow always goes missing. So when I am at installation, I always have my trusty little kit. How many women have their own tools? Right, we have professionals here. I even had my own set at home that my husband wasn't allowed to touch. Yes, taking her hand. Of course, I see things go missing, and so it's like I can't hide that well enough for him not to get into it. But anyway, I am really thrilled, like I said, to be here. I also want, with a show of hands, to know how many of you actually select your own hardware. Oh, wow, that's an awesome amount of people. How many of you actually do your own purchasing of it? Less and less. I expected that. I'm going to go even more technical. How many of you have ever installed your own hardware? Wow, right? Right? That's where I've drawn the line, right? I've drawn the line. We get a good installer. How many of you do the measuring for it? Great. I'm going to touch on that a little bit because John here at Ideas didn't want me to go too deep into the weeds, but I can go there. I'll go in the weeds if you need me to. Come up to me afterwards and talk to me. I'm not even going to touch about how to calculate length. I know how to calculate length if you want help on that. I had to relearn all that. So I have a background in design, and then I became a sales rep, and so I was trained in my 20s. That was several decades ago. And then they asked me to come start the finished products department. I'm like, oh shoot, I'm going to have to remember all that stuff that I quickly forgot. But really, when you're a sales rep, you're always kind of in the game a little bit, because window treatments are such a huge part of our business. And what's surprising to me is the amount of designers who forego the window. They're like, I don't even want to deal with it. I don't even want to learn this. I'm just going to let my workroom do it, or I'm going to let like the installer purchase it all. And I'm like, are you crazy? Like, that is a money-making opportunity that you're passing up on. Let me train you. So that's really, today is not obviously going to get you fully trained, but I want you to have more confidence in it, at least be curious about it, and twist my arm, make me come to Florida and make me sit with you and train you. I mean, I always tease everybody, right? So hopefully you'll find that there's some benefit and getting you to that point when I'm done. So Fabricut is a 70-year-old company. We're still family-owned. We're one of the few that are left. And we're one of the largest distributors of hardware in the country. Finio company in Paris, Texas, we obtained, I don't know how many years ago. It's not been that long. And it really pushed us deep into the hardware realm. Prior to that, Fabricut's had hardware. Our Trend brand had kind of an entry-level program of hardware. And then we also acquired Byron & Byron, which is a UK-based hardware company known for their finishes. The gentleman who started that company actually comes from a family of Italian furniture makers. And the story is he went to the UK and could not find hardware that he thought was as beautiful as the furniture that he grew up with. So he's like, I'll start my own hardware company. And he's, not only does he have that lovely Italian accent, but when he speaks, the depth of knowledge and the love of hardware is just beautifully rolling off of his tongue. So Byron & Byron's a very special line, and I'm going to show some pieces from that as well today. But oftentimes it's okay, where do we even start? And of course, as a designer, you're always going for what is the feel of this room, because we want to always sort of honor the architecture, the design style that you're going for, but equally as important is the function. And I feel that sometimes when I'm working with new people that are new to the business or new to the whole idea of draperies and hardware, they're like, what are you even talking about? And so we're going to talk about why we have different functions, what's the difference between what I'm calling a side panel, a stationary panel, versus a functioning, traversing drapery, and what kind of hardware we would use for both, and then all the other little details that can go into that decision. And then the fun part. Let's start talking about some of the overall design elements that I might want to incorporate. And we were kind of talking in the beginning about what design has been, but I can kind of tell you where it's going. We're in the fabric business, so we get to, I have the fortunate thing of being with product people, and they're always sort of getting the pulse on what's going on in design. Now that said, a lot of what's going on in fabric is sort of driven by the South, because the South tends to do the most business. They, if any of you have been somewhere into the heart of Mississippi or the heart of Atlanta, there's nobody there that does not fully decorate their house. It's just the way that they've grown up. And so a lot of, when you go into those areas, there's a lot of designers, there's a lot of design stores, and they tend to be more traditional. And so a lot of the fabrics that are coming back, and some, you look younger than everybody else, but those of us who've been around have seen all these fabrics, and we're like, oh my God, they're coming back. Plaids, checks, window panes, small prints, Waverly, just kidding. Those kinds of looks are all coming back, and when I'm talking to the younger designers, it's fresh, it's new. They haven't been around to see that we even covered our walls and our sofas and our everything with it. They're looking at it, bringing new life to it, new colors to it. So that is somewhat driving design and driving some of the hardware choices. And I was designing back in the 90s, where I was looking at Florida Design Magazine, and I was like, what else can I add to this window? What more can I put into this design? And then things went, whoa, way back into super stripped down, kind of repetitive and boring. When I go to Nashville, for instance, every house is white, every window treatment is white, every rod is a bent return rod in either bronze or black. Okay, can we come a little bit more to the middle? At least here in Florida, when I've gone around, you have people that, no, I only sell solids, and I'll go somewhere else. No, but my clients want pattern. They've had that, or this is their second home. They want to have fun. So we're seeing a little bit, I think, good for you guys, a little bit more variance. You do tend to be a little bit more modern and contemporary than what maybe I'm describing is going on in design. But I just wanted to kind of let you know that when you start looking at all the new fabrics and some of the things I set out on the trays, there's a lot more traditional coming back again. I mean, I literally have seen a flame stitch come back into one of the collections that we did, right? So you got to kind of laugh a little bit. But we definitely are mixing our materials, or at least you have the option to do that. And I'm going to challenge you and say, why not do something more creative and interesting at the window? Just because everybody else is doing something simple, show some of these creative options to your clients, because we have tons of them to show. Mixing wood and metal, mixing a rope detail. This is actually a rod that we have that's really fun, especially for Florida, and we can show you something in trend. Going to show you a lot of fun stuff. And again, with the materials, we have stained wood. And Byron, there is a tray out in the back with our vervain. There's a beautiful stained wood piece there where you can see the graining of the wood. And we have some new hardware that is in our quick ship collection with, again, the graining coming through. And people are responding to that. They're like, oh, I love that it's not flat, it's got dimension to it. So fun things like that. There is a huge difference in acrylic. If I had one of our opening price point trend acrylic rod to compare to this Byron and Byron, you'd see a huge difference in the acrylic on that. So not all acrylic is even created equal from brand to brand. And of course we have things like mirroring that can happen on your finials as well. Okay, so here's where we start talking about the function. So when I created finished products for what we were doing, we have a way of separating out our side panels just for ease of ordering. So side panels to me are primarily going to be something that's literally on the wall. It's not meant to function. It's just going to be stationary, whether it be a width and a half, or 2 widths. That's really what I'm referring to as a side panel. And for that, you can pretty much use any kind of rod. But when you get into drapery, where you need it to open and close, you're obviously going to need something with a track system or some kind of bracketing that's going to allow you to pass the ring. And I'm going to show some examples of that, because you don't necessarily have to have just a functional track. And I also want to let you know that I'm seeing a lot of people who want simple hardware with a track, and then they use what's called an end stop in order to hold that as stationary, so that they can just mount their side panel but yet have a traversing rod. It's just not traversing. And one of the places, again, I was in Nashville, and it was a very unusual window where the hotel room had a window that was set back about 6 feet, and there was a roller shade. And then on the walls out here 6 feet forward, they took a rod, I think it was this rod, and mounted it with a ripple fold side panel stationary on the wall, so that when you came in, you saw the fabric. It was very different, very strange. But you can do it, and I'm even going to talk how you can do that with ripple fold. And then you have your standard pole, but with passing rings and passing brackets. And I see a lot of people attempt to do this and they forget. So I have some examples I'm going to show you later of why that's important and why you need passing brackets. So this is what I was referring to on the ripple fold side panel. This is a photo shoot that I did back with our original catalog, and I've talked to some of you from Chicago, that's why I talk funny. And I designed this room, and every photo shoot I did, it was like, oh, this is my dream Parisian apartment, this was my Chicago loft, and I had this room to deal with, but that was a room with no brick. And if you've ever been into the heart of Chicago, you get a lot of these cool lofts with brick. And so that was added post-production. Isn't that kind of cool? I love how they did that. But that's a ripple fold with color blocking on the bottom. Nobody's doing color blocking. Just kind of disappoints me, because I did it a lot. And I, in that case, was doing functional ripple fold hardware. But again, I have a lot of people that do not understand how ripple fold is. And ripple fold literally has a tape on the back of the drapery. It's a flat panel with a tape. The tape is generic in terms of any tape that's used is spaced with incremental snaps. It's the carrier system that has the breakout of the carriers in different fullnesses, 80, 100, 120. And it's the distance between these carriers that create that serpentine shape. So I've even gone into a showroom in LA where the installer didn't quite get the ripple fold. And in a ripple fold, the carriers are every 2 are together, and that's what creates that backwards and forwards of a ripple fold. And nobody had taken the time to figure out where you push back the ripple fold. And it was just, if you've ever hung one and not done it, it just looks haphazard on the window. And I was like, okay, get me a ladder. I can't. I don't know if you guys are like me, but I travel a lot, and I am getting on bed frames, ladders. I'm fixing drapery in every hotel, and I travel every 2 weeks. So there's a lot of fixed draperies from my travels. But that was one case where I was like, oh, no, you don't. You did that wrong. And these carriers, by the way, just snap out of the track. And then best way is to literally put these on the table on the drapery, and then go up the ladder and put it back on. It's just, these things can hurt your finger if you've ever had to snap. They're not fun, but popular and growing in popularity, and very popular here because it gives you a very clean look. I wanted it for my own home because I have a more modern home, but my stack, and we're going to talk about that, my wall was only this big, and I could not even do a ripple fold because a ripple fold actually takes up more room on the wall than just about a pleated drapery. So I wasn't able to do the ripple fold look that I wanted. I had to go grommet, which pained me. Didn't want to, but when you look at a grommet straight on, it kind of gives you that serpentine shape. So it is what it is, but sometimes you have to design for the space that you have, right? Not necessarily what your client's dreaming in their head. I know you know what that means. So the other thing that I think is super, super fun is the ability to create painted finishes. This is one of our rods also from the collection, and if you get a chance to come down here, it's kind of hidden back here. It is the Neon Floral collection that is from Byron & Byron, but almost every hardware company has the capability of letting you choose the finish. And I did a women's conference, and there is a, okay, so this comes as a fabric from Stroheim. So I did this fabric, and I wanted that coral color. So I sent them a Sherwin-Williams color, and they color coordinated it. I didn't even need a strike off. It was spot on. And they're a European company, so they love European paints, but you can send them just about any paint finish, and they'll create that for you. Again, another way to kind of customize it and make it interesting. But all the way down to our trend brand, can we do that? So we can even do it in our opening price point where you can do some like beachy look, and maybe you have a specific color of blue or coral or something in the room. So be adventurous. You can have fun with painted hardware. That's one of our Stroheim ads. So I'm not sure. I think that's probably a stocked color from our trend hardware that's there. So I have to talk about the grommets because it was just 2 weeks ago that I actually found out that somebody was ordering like 120-inch grommet panels, and I mean in width. And I just couldn't understand why they were doing that. Your bracketing on a standard rod should be about every 3 feet. It should be 2 feet for acrylic. I've literally used acrylic rods, a 6-foot acrylic rod one time, where I'm like, it's gonna be up for a weekend. I'm not gonna use that center bracket, and within 1 day, the rod was warping. Can happen. So make sure when you're doing acrylic, I'm not saying, like on our 6-foot set, we will send you 3 brackets. I would definitely say on 6 or 8 feet, you need 3 brackets. Don't do what I did and forego that center bracket. But on grommet, you literally sit 3/4 of an inch above the rod, and that grommet cannot pass over any bracketing. So you can't really do it for a big, huge window. I would say nothing more than about 8 feet. So I just threw that in there. Grommets are a very small amount of the business, but oddly enough, I have some high-end designer. I have one in Denver. Everything she does with very high-end fabrics is grommet. So thought I'd throw it out there. Okay, so this is one of my fun slides about pole length. And again, we're going to go back and we're going to talk about what stacking is. So all workrooms can tell you what the stacking dimensions. I have a chart that's in our book that says, okay, on a 100-inch wide drapery, your stacking is going to be about 17 inches on each side. But really, another cheat is 1/3 of the window will give you what your stack is. And if it's split draw, you take that and put half of it on one side and half of it on another. That's just a quick cheat. I really can't stress enough how your rod has to go past your window to cover that amount of stack. Especially here, no one wants to cover up that glass, right? You want that full glass exposure. Of course, sometimes we have to come in and we can't go that full 17 inches. Maybe we have a piece of furniture or a very nice piece of artwork that's never going to move. So you start at the ideal placement and then you come in. what I would tell you is that I would have that conversation with the customer, because customers, again, get very unrealistic expectations of what you're going to deliver in the end. And I think it's always best to have that conversation and let them know, okay, we really can't go this far out. We're going to be here on the window, and just know that this drapery is going to sit about 6 inches in on your glass, just so that they're getting and you're delivering what's the right expectation, the realistic expectation of what that is. So that's a little cheat. And the other thing that I want to talk about that's more drapery related is building ease into the drapery. A lot of designers do not think about when the drapery is fully closed and the rod's 100 inches, you don't order 100 inches of drapery. You build in, everybody's got a different percentage. I build in about 4%. It's called ease. Therefore, my drapery is a little bit looser and more relaxed. It's not like it's wearing tight pants on the window. Another trick that I use that's in regards to the actual return, which is the side that goes back to the wall, I add a 1/2 inch to the bracket projection. So if my bracket projection is 3.5 inches, I make my return 4. Again, therefore it's not stretching super tight. If it's a pin drapery, the pin is never right on the edge, right? It's always in about a 1/2 inch. So you don't want that pin going like this and reaching the wall. So those are a couple little tricks that I use. And again, I'm not going into how to take deductions for rings and come up with length, but if any of you want to know that, I have that knowledge. A little bit about poles. So a lot of companies in the opening price point, especially like in our trend, those poles are only 4, 6, and 8 feet. They can be cut to what you need. You can splice them together with a metal splice. If it's wood, you can use a wood screw. You can put them together. I have mounted acrylic poles that way, and there's a special glue that I buy. I can't remember what the name of it is, and I put a little dab of glue on there, and I make sure I have a bracket there over that, especially a closed loop bracket over that. But our pole diameters range, I would tell you that on average people are using smaller diameters. This is going to be 1 3/8, very popular size for most manufacturers, 1 1/8. But it depends on the height at which they're mounted on the window. The taller the window, the more they kind of lose something if you put a small little diameter pole up on the wall. So that really has to be taken into consideration as well. And then as far as rings, we have all kinds of fun rings. And I want to draw attention again to this ring that we have with the rope detail. In trend, we have this really cute set that comes in like a natural wood color. There is a ball finial with rope in 2 different finishes. And then there is the rings that come with that little rope. And it's very beachy and very fun. And Adriano brought in his catalog that we set here somewhere, so come up and see us if you're interested in that. It's kind of fun. I will tell you that when it comes to acrylic, it's not the strongest ring. I wouldn't use it for any kind of traversing drapery. I would pretty much stick that and not let the drapery move. They can be very fragile. And then regarding the C-rings, I tempted you a little bit talking about that. So here we have this cute little rod that I took off of one of my displays. And this is the difference between a regular bracket, and what we call a passing bracket. So here we have the passing ring, which is open on the back, and then it can traverse over. So you can do rings on a job that is traversing, but you have to have passing rings and passing brackets. And then for me, when I do my installation, unlike this photo that was in a photo shoot that I did not design, I prefer to put a regular ring on the end so that it can't come past the bracket, and she didn't do that for the photo shoot, okay? And then I typically mount my bracket in 2 to 3 inches, maybe up to 6, no more than that. Sometimes our photo shoots, I see them and it's like that much pole hanging away from the, I don't like it. It just doesn't look spaced correctly. And that's, again, our Trend Petites collection, a little 3/4 inch pole where you can mix metal and wood together. So here's some of the pictures of the different types of brackets. If I can impart any kind of knowledge, and I'm sorry I don't have a really good bracket, that it's the back plate of the bracket that all your strength is coming from. It's not the pole. So when we have a bracket that's like this, that only this amount of space is making contact with the wall, it is not as strong as in our heavy-duty rods. When you have track, it's a big honking L bracket that maybe makes 4 or 5 inches worth of contact with the wall. And that's where your strength is coming from. So you never have pretty brackets with heavy duty. It's meant for function. And so some of these other brackets are more decorative that I have up here. And that double bracket, I wouldn't trust that for anything unless I was putting like sheer panels. I get nervous when I see those double brackets with those little back plates. Better is the one that has the 2 bars coming off and a little bit longer back plate. And these bypass brackets here are from our Finial company, and they are steel, and those are better as well. We use those all the time with steel. So a lot of different choices in bracketing for the rods as well, but fairly simple. Ceiling installations. Very ever popular right now, especially. I hate them. The last one I did, I had an installer measure the room, and he used a laser, but he measured at the wall. And the weird thing was, when you came out, I think my projection was something like 9 inches. I was going around some Lutron shades. The floor sloped 1 inch from one side of the room to the other, okay? That's why I hate ceiling installation. If I can do 1 inch below the ceiling with a wall bracket and give myself that cushion, I will do it all day long. Because remember, when your installer goes to install, on a ceiling installation, everything better be perfect, or you're rehemming on site, or and it's awful. So I rather go to a wall installation with a wall bracket, and really by the time you get away from it, you really can't tell that you mounted that 1 inch down from the ceiling. It's very rare. But I get in some of these high rises, you have to do that. You just really need to do a really good laser measurement at that point in which your drapery is hanging, and not necessarily just at the wall. Bent returns. Bent returns are an anomaly. They're very, very popular, as I mentioned, in Nashville, in Georgia, in a lot of the southern territories. So I thought I would just touch on them, or I'd be ignoring a very big category. We have all different types of bent returns. Sometimes the bent return is separate from the pole and functions like its own bracket. Okay, there's a splice in here. This is fairly large in diameter. I'm holding it upside down. This is from a Paris, Texas company. But they actually invented this cool little cuff that has an eyelet on it so that your last pin can go into this cuff, and it kind of holds the drapery from pulling around. I don't necessarily do what she's showing here in her photo shoot from Finial company, and it's not showing the passing bracket because those are passing rings, but I wanted to kind of give you a visual of some of the options. Primarily, if I'm specifying bent returns, I go right to our steel from Finial company. This is custom. I can customize this. This is a 3/4 inch diameter. This is extremely European. If you go to Europe, this is what everybody's doing in Europe. You almost hardly see anything other than this, especially because I go to France a lot, and this is like in everywhere. But this comes in 3/4 inch. It comes in 1 1/4. I would say I specify that a lot more. And because I'm trying to fool myself, I put this bracket because I feel like it looks a little bit more modern than the round one. I know that's probably not the case because we're looking at something more modern or more traditional, but this can be hand painted in any of their 50 finishes. So Finial company has 50 finishes, Paris, Texas has 30, a lot of different finish options. I'm gonna pass this around because the first thing you notice is you can start doing curls with it. It's very heavy. So your installer better secure it in the wall with mollies. He better hit wood. You know, you just can't throw that up on the wall and hope that it hangs. You know, it's really, really, really heavy. But I would say that if you're going for something that's more traditional or Mediterranean and it's going to have longevity, that's been around forever. It's tried and true. It's never going to go out of style. It's just been around forever.
What's the purpose of that bent rod?
It's more of an aesthetic look, and you don't, it is its own bracket, like I said, and depending upon how wide and how heavy you get, it's kind of cleaner in the bracketing. At 8 feet, though, you need a center support. Okay, so you can do a full, like, cradle bracket at that point, but I would say more than often we're doing those on larger windows, and we are doing the passing bracket that I was showing right here. Single passing, double passing. So again, it's really, really popular. We sell so many of those, it's crazy. Lot of them. Here's an installation. I don't know where this is, probably somewhere like North Carolina. There's that check I was telling you about, and they even have a little tassel fringe on the edge. So see, I told you, it's all coming back. This is kind of like an antique gold. I'm not sure why they felt they needed a center support there, because if I look at that, that doesn't look that wide to me, but might be heavy, and maybe they don't have a really good secure way of installing that. So you can't go wrong with the center support. It's going to give you obviously more support. Finials and end caps are often what you notice, and I want to make this point, especially when we talk about the hardware in of itself. Window treatments, when you walk in a room, the windows are kind of where your eyes gravitate towards because it's at this level and higher, and so that is why I guess I feel like we need to be more creative at the window in terms of the hardware and the drapery fabrics, because it's really what you notice when you walk into a room. I know that I'm in the drapery department, but when I walk into a room, I feel like my eye evaluates that drapery. That's like one of the first things that I do. And so often it's been just end caps. We've all been stuck in this thing, and a lot of our sets and these hardware pieces that I'm showing you from Finial Company in Paris, Texas, they're sold in sets and they come with the round end cap. So it's really super easy, and I tell a lot of people that I'm teaching that if you want sort of a go-to hardware that's easy, you don't have to put a lot of thought into it, and you feel comfortable, you can start with the Modern Metal and Metal collection from TFC. And Adriano and I have the catalog up here for you to take a look at it, because it's an easy go-to, it's well priced. And I think it goes up to, I don't remember how many feet it goes up to, but it goes pretty large. This is it in the satin gold, which is a beautiful finish. And if I'm doing this, I like the square end cap because I feel like it just gives it a little more oomph than the round. This is an additional purchase. And the other thing is that the catalog itself does not show all the finial options. They're in the Finial Company's catalog. So we do have a lot of different options of different kind of finials, and they're all here. So all these beautiful finials can go onto that set, except when you want to do a ceiling mount. You can't fit a finial on it. So if you are doing a ceiling mount, you're pretty much stuck with just an end cap. So kind of keep that in mind as well. But all kinds of beautiful, beautiful options. I brought the Halo collection. I feel like a queen with this one in my hand. But I referenced this about the acrylic. I also want to talk about the pole, because a lot of what you think of when you think of acrylic poles, you think of this, right? Mm-hmm. Here's where I'm going to give away what you're talking about. This has a hollow option. It has a hollow option in all 3 diameters, and they're UK, so it's 35 millimeter, 45 millimeter, 55 millimeter. One of my customers in Chicago did 2 children's rooms, and in the little girl's room, she filled it with pom-poms, and the little boy's room, she filled it with trucks. And I've never forgotten that, because I was like, Oh, my brain started going, right? All the fun things that you can stick into this pole. And then I was like, wait a minute, I can't put M&Ms in there. That wouldn't be smart. But you can put all kinds of fun things in there and really go for something really custom to that room. And God bless you if you have parents that would buy this for their kids' room, because that is a really nice hardware sale on your part. But don't think of it just in terms of solid acrylic. It does look different, obviously, to have that hollow core. The hollow core poles are actually stronger in the steel and in the acrylic than the solid ones. So that's just a little tidbit about acrylic, but really fun collection. So heavy duty traverse, we do not have good pictures in our catalogs for what's going on in heavy duty. Nobody's selling this. This is not what we're using. We are using this. So this is a heavy duty rod with a fascia. All your function is coming from the back, right? It's all coming from the rod. Again, with those heavy duty brackets. We have this as a cord draw. Did a lot of you think cords went away? Because you were told cords went away? Cords have not gone away on hardware. So if your customer has 20 feet of drapery that's 10 feet up in the air, you might not want to give them a manual wand to push those draperies back, right? It's not really easy to do that. Corded would be your next opportunity. It's going to be in the heavy duty that you can get that, or then motorization. Not everybody can afford motorization, but a lot of people don't realize that you can still do the corded like Grandma had, okay? So it's just not, doesn't look like what Grandma had. It's not that white Kirsch rod across the window. We cover it now with a fascia, and there's all different kinds of profiles of fascias that we have. So we have catalogs to and it's hard to visualize it. If I go to our Finial Company Traverse catalog and I go to the fascia page, can you tell what I was just holding up was that? Yes. It's kind of hard. And when you look at this, it's cut off on the end unless you add the mitered returns. Those are a separate part of it. And it closes off the top of the window, and so a lot of designers are doing mitered returns. Okay, and now I've been doing it more so in either this 2 1/4 flat, or there's another one that's slightly rounded and it's 1 7/8 slim round, but mitering it. So it's transitional. It's not as hard line because it's not so squared off. So I really do those two. And again, in Finial Company, there's a reason why this binder is so big. There's 50 finishes to choose from. I guarantee you there won't be a finish there that doesn't work. And on those, when you paint it in like the warm walnut, which I use a lot, you can't tell that that's not wood when you get it up on the window. So it doesn't have to have that metallic-y finish. I've done it in black in California, which was pretty strong, but I like to use it a lot of times in the wood finishes or the soft gold kind of finishes. So that is what a fascia is. And you have to have it unless you're doing something behind a soffit or you have a way of covering up that rod. And here's an example of what the brackets look like. This is my display in my office, and so you can see the difference in the contact to the board between that round back plate and then that heavy duty plate. They're not pretty. Hopefully your customer isn't seeing them. They're functional and they're there for a reason, but the decorative hardware in the poles, everything's pretty because it just is. So here's your different fascia profiles. There's an example of it when it's kind of got the fluting going on. Again, I don't see people using that as much as the smooth options that we have. And there's some example. There's that rod installed down in our Dallas showroom. A little note about ripple fold, and I'd love for you to chime in on this. Ripple fold drapery don't all hang the same as pinch pleated draperies, no matter the content, unless you really have natural fibers. I have moved away unless there are some tried and true fabrics that he can recommend for you that I do recommend that are poly that look like linen, or linen that has some poly in it, or some linen or some cotton, but 100% polyesters on a ripple fold, I almost can tell you that they are going to flare. That's just the nature of the beast with ripple fold. So just be careful. There's a lot of great looking fabrics with that content of polyester. I would say try to find something with a little bit of natural fibers in there. Do you agree with that?
Yes, so we are kind of testing the different, obviously fullnesses.
Yes.
And that's been a topic of mine lately about testing different
To see if
snap
one
tapes.
Oh.
Different, because the standard one is 4 inches, 4
Yes.
and a quarter.
Yeah.
And we've been playing kind of in our workroom with like 7 inches.
I've
and
never
even-
seen anything other than that snap
Yes,
tape.
and what we are trying to learn, I've heard there is a company, the workroom in New York, who do custom snaps,
God
which is
love 'em.
obviously for every fabric.
Yeah.
They're like,
Wow.
Heather mentioned, this is where my
Part of that
like,
is to
that's how-
hide the seaming, because
Yeah.
if you use a standard placement on the snap tape, you can't guarantee that that
That's
seam won't
exactly
be
it.
in the
and I
front.
would like, it's kind of my mission to get
It's
to
a
that
lot
level
of
where-
math.
Yes.
Go in peace, because I don't want to calculate that
It's
math.
it's
Because
not
remember, a
like a
ripple fold is a flat drapery. And so then they go to lay, so they put your widths together and then they lay that tape out and oh boy, now you're hitting a seam. So it's very, very custom to create a ripple fold drapery where that seam is hidden in the back like it would be on a pleated drapery. But I say this to you because I'm the head of a department that does millions and millions of dollars worth of business, and I don't want one customer to be disappointed in what they've gotten. I don't want you to have a disappointed customer. So I rather you control that on the front end by choosing fabrics. Not every fabric is meant for every type of treatment. There's a generic, and I'm going to go on my little bit of a tangent. So I've been in fabric. I've worked for Fabricut for 28 years. And there's coding that all the companies put on their fabrics and on their books that say recommended for drapery. They don't mean drapery. It should say window. Because some of the fabrics are better on a flat valance or on a flat Roman shade than they are on a drapery where you're trying to make it pleat. So I have the luxury of running to the worker or running over to the warehouse, grabbing a bolt down and like playing with it. But there are definitely some fabrics. One of them is called understated. Another one, if you want colors, is called serene. They're wide, they're seamless, they're 100% polyester, but they are fabulous and they drape fabulous. Oh, yay! Adriano. I forgot I made this for him.
Those are double width?
This is a 118-inch railroaded fabric. You could not line it like a sheer. You could line it and make it more opaque, or you could put blackout on it and make it look more, blackout if you need to. But this is a very, let me do what I do. This is a really good fabric and this was cut off the bolt this way, so it's half of a half of a half. It's really small, but oftentimes, if I'm going to test a fabric, and they love me when we do a sales meeting and they start passing around the fabric, this is me sitting in the audience. This has always been me, even when I was a sales rep, because I'm going to go to a customer and I want to be able to show this.
Yes.
Okay, this is 100% polyester, and it looks this good even when it's lined. There's a book with colors. It's called Serene. Please, I'm sure they have it here. Please look at it. And then in the sheer book, it's called Understated. It's in textural movement, I think, is understated.
Yep.
Thank you for helping me. I'm talking about it. It's right there. Great fabric. It would be my go-to. Especially in my workroom, I can go up on understated about to 102 inches seamless. So depending on how you work your hems in, you can vary that. But man, a seamless drapery that hangs beautifully like that is awesome. Sorry, that was my little diversion there.
For a sheer, do you recommend a European hem or a standard?
Golly, when I first started in this business, we bought shears from Belgium and they all came with the Euro hem sewn into them. And those of you who remember some of the companies out there that used to make them, no one's buying from those companies anymore. It's very hard unless you're in a European company to find them. I like the look of it, but I would say that it's I mean, are you adding Euro hems or are you doing the 2 times hem? You're doing it.
Yep.
Yeah, my workroom doesn't do that necessarily. We'll add it, but only to give it a little bit of weight to the bottom, but they don't all need it. Shears are different because even though they're polyester, they're so thin in the weave that they hang well. So very few are wiry and don't hang well. So it's a matter of preference.
Okay, so that fabric that you were just showing
Mm-hmm.
us,
You could.
typically 100% polyester is not
You-
good for a ripple.
It is, but that one is. That's why I
Right, but
show
that
it.
one is in, okay.
Yeah, and there are very few shears that we sell where I've had a problem with them flaring. It's the thinness, so it's not just the yarn itself, it's the thinness of the weave of them, that even on our batistes and our voiles, they don't hang bad even in 100%. It's when you start getting into the thicker weaves and the heavier yarns that they start more of the flaring. So you can do it, and there are some that, if you have a fabric, by the way, that has strong horizontal in the weave, it impedes the fabric's ability to drape a lot of times. So some of the fabrics that we have in books that say drapery, that are jacquard weaves that have sheen to them, man, oh man, a lot of those heavy polyesters, they do not hold a pleat well. But I don't see that problem with shears that much. I really don't.
Well, living here in Florida, I have been told that we can't use linen because it stretches.
You can. It can stretch a lot. That's because the linen plant is a couple things. So it absorbs moisture. It's also like a straw. If you look at linen fiber under a microscope, it literally is like a straw. So if you break a straw, you know what happens, right? You can never repair that straw. Linen is very much the same way. So I'm not a huge fan. I hate to break this to all of you, but rayon is almost just as bad. Rayon or viscose, if you buy a sweater and it shrinks and you need to stretch it, you just soak it in water. So what happens on a lot of the fabrics that have viscose or rayon in them, and they're usually blended with linen, is that the installer gets to the install and then he starts steaming it and he pumps way too much steam into the drapery. Then to make matters worse, it's hanging, it's got all that moisture in it, and now overnight suddenly your hem is uneven. So if I'm dealing with a fiber content of linen and rayon or viscose and rayon, I'm sorry, I literally try to get it as smoothed out with an iron or on a flat surface and let it hold out, let out the moisture before I hang it. It's just the nature of the beast. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the fabric. Again, it's learning your contents and learning your fabrics. But I would agree with you, in humid environments like Florida, it's probably not optimal, and we have so many good options for you that look like linen and kind of avoid linen that you can do that. I held up a sample earlier that has what are called master carriers. These are ripple fold overlap master carriers. So in ripple fold, your master carriers allow your draperies to come together. And again, the purpose of an overlap is to block out any light penetration from the drapery. In a ripple fold butting, you have a master carrier that comes together like this. It looks better, but then you have the opportunity to have a light gap there on the drapery. And so does your homeowner want to take a chip clip and put it on there like I do when I travel? I doubt it. So you have to kind of make that determination between those two. It looks kind of odd on the overlapping ripple fold because it's like you have this beautiful serpentine and then 7 inches of flattening out, but I would argue that I rather have that, and especially if you put a tape there, it looks more purposeful, but that's what you would have a master carrier for. You don't always need a master carrier if you have literal ball bearing carriers sometimes. You don't have to have that on a pinch pleat drapery. So just kind of know that that's up to you and your installer if you want to use the master carrier. And then I also just here almost at the end want to talk a little bit about motorization. I keep referring to these collections because these are our most popular. And in the 1 3/8, these can be done with motorization as well. So these are either manual draw, they can be stationary with rings, or motorized. But we offer 2 different motors. And in this metal rod, we offer the R-Tech motor. This is what an R-Tech slimline motor looks like. It is what we refer to as a Li-ion, lithium ion. You charge it just like you do a cell phone. Really easy to install, really easy to program, and this gives you 500 open and closes between charges. I will tell you that when I use this a lot of times, I have to make sure I remember before my install to charge up this battery. They cannot ship these batteries fully charged. So if you do any kind of motorization that has a rechargeable lithium-ion battery, your installer has to take everything out and charge it up. It will come with a charger. The other thing about these motors is they only come with about 18 inches of cord. So depending on how high these go, sometimes we order an extra 6-foot cord that hides behind the drapery just for easier reach for your customers. So all those parts and pieces are available with any of the motors. This is great because this design hides behind all your pleat spacing. You do not notice this motor so much on the window. Somfy's traditionally has been this big. And so when you have your spacing, you can kind of see it push out. And this is like the Cadillac of motors, and this is the AC motor where it plugs in the wall. This can come also rechargeable. Don't let the cord scare you. But only recently on the Ripple Fold have they come up with a way, there's a part that can go up in the truck that can turn this sideways. And we've started specifying that. And then we actually started working in, I want to show you this part because installers throw this away all the time. This goes here on the end. There's a little part. It's not easy to do by hand. This is for either your last snap or your last pin to go in on the side of the motor. Woo! There we go. Hopefully that doesn't happen to your installer right in front of the client. But anyway, so this is the Somfy motor. Somfy is, they do everything from awnings and garage doors commercially. They're from France, but they're an awesome company. They are really, like I said, doing really well with this motor, but it is more expensive than the R-Tech motor that I just showed you. It's about a 25% difference in price. So if I'm doing a room and I have one wall of windows that doesn't need to talk to, and by the way, these all talk to smart home, Google, Alexa, you can get all the parts and pieces you need to talk to them. I will do the R-Tech motor just to save the consumer money if that's what they want to do. Our shades and some of the products in the house might talk to Somfy, so you would do Somfy if you have other Somfy products in the house. Lutron doesn't play well in the sandbox with anybody else. Hunter Douglas, you can get an adapter that will talk to Somfy but not to R-Tech. So just kind of, motorization is very intimidating, but let me tell you that there's basic stuff that you need to know that you can sell it and then get a good installer. And what I also want to let you know is from Somfy, they are moving towards the Zigbee motor that is now available. It will allow your customer to actually program all their own stuff. It will have an app and it will be so much easier. Zigbee chips are now being put into lighting, into refrigerators, and soon the smart homes will have all these Zigbee products and they'll have one app and they'll be able to control everything. And when they go on to Zigbee, it will say, oh, do you want to program your window treatments now? And your installer won't have to do that anymore. So that's what's coming. It's here. It's just not, it's kind of new. And whenever anything's new, everybody's kind of like, I'm going to wait a little bit and see. And that's the thing about motorization is that even in the few years I've been selling hardware, it's changed like every other year. I'm going to show you some of the components that go along with it. So we started out with a MyLink that went in the wall, then that went away. This is the hub for RTech. So a hub will allow it to connect to any smart device. So you need that in the home so that you can literally talk to it. You could be away on vacation and you could tell your draperies to close, which is awesome. This Tahoma is not that big. It's only about this tall. And so that has to be in the room, or that is actually for the Zigbee now. So there's all these different component parts. I love that with Somfy and even RTech, you can even get a sun sensor. So if the window reaches 80 degrees, you can program it. Automatically will close those draperies and your customer doesn't even have to think about it. So that we can get any of those parts and pieces. You would just need to work with them and say, hey, I heard her mention this. What are the other kind of features that I can get with these different companies? And then they will literally help you. And the biggest thing about motorization is if you don't even mention it to your customer, believe me, they're not always asking for it. They don't even think about it. I have an owner of my company whose daughter was doing a complete rehab in Brentwood in Tennessee. And listen, I knew by what she was saying there was almost no budget on this job, okay? And I asked her, I could tell by the way she was showing me the floor plan, the wall was 15 feet away from the bed. And I said to her, hey, how do you plan on opening your draperies? And she was like, what do you mean how I go, wouldn't you like to lay in bed and hit a switch? She was like, I could do that? I go, that's why I go to the Venetian in Las Vegas, because they got motorized draperies. I think it's so much fun. It feels like the lap of luxury. She's like, didn't even know to ask about it. So if you don't talk about that as one of the functions that you can offer your clients, you might not ever sell it. So talk about it, bring it up. Do you want to manually draw this? Do you want a cord draw, or would you like motorization? Just throw it out there. Most of us who have hardware departments, and you have people here that will get you to the right sources to make sure that you have all the support that you need. That's why you have IDS. That's why we have a hardware department. That's why we have specialists that they can come to and get that help that they need. Okay, so I just want to kind of put that out there to take a chance. It's double the sale for the window at least. I just saw an order go through last night to the designer with $8,000 worth of motorized hardware. And we do it all the time. Adriana sells it all the time. So this was one room. This was all motorized with the RTech motor. It was a sheer window, and you had that interesting bend on the window. So this was one of the jobs. I couldn't get the video portion of it to work, but I just wondered why they didn't clean up the room before they took the picture, but it is what it is. I would have staged it. And then I want to touch on corners, because once in a while I'll work with a professional, and we have professional specialists who do window treatments all day long, and she rocked my world. So whenever I was doing corners, I was always doing this with my side panels. And she's like, well, but I do it this way. I literally do a one-way panel in the corner and make it stretch both sides of the window. And I'm like, oh my God, I never thought of that. So there are people that are even more experienced than myself that do this day in and day out, that they can access and get help for all these tricky installations. But elbows are a very necessary part of doing window treatments, whether it be a bay window or a corner situation like this. And I have seen more and more rooms with hardware kind of wrapping around. Talking earlier about people doing hardware around the room versus short little rods, and you of course accomplish that with an elbow. And then custom drapery is, as I was alluding to earlier, such an important part of the room that I feel a lot of times the hardware is an afterthought. So hopefully today you can visit with me, you can come up and look at the hand samples and some of these really interesting pieces, and you can just sort of elevate that room by putting a little bit more creativity into the hardware. And I would love to answer any questions that anybody has. Thank you for interacting with me during the presentation, because I would forget, if I had to ask a question later, but please visit with us and we'll be glad to help you with any projects or any questions that you have. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yesterday when I took this apart, I was trying to put it in the wrong end. Because I can't see. I didn't have my glasses on. There it goes. It's even turned on right now. So. Have you seen this kind of motor before?
You know, I have, and we mostly use Somfy.
You do?
Just because, you know, my workroom, so we're not a workroom, we're kind of window treatment company, so
Yes.
like we're